munch on my kosi.
At least it's not infused with infused things.
Kosi is healthy.
Right now, people in Katikeki now.
No. Don't be indulging in those things at parties. So you'll be in trouble. But we go to Nungua. We understand that's the Adangbe Muslim Union. They sought to install a queen mother and a chief. That's husband and wife. And the unfortunate incident happened where musketry went off, hit the thigh of the now deceased queen mother, and the brother is alleging that they took her to a first facility. There was no help. They went to Lekma all on their own. There was no help. Lekma asked them to go to the Accra Regional Hospital. They got there. They extracted or excavated a bullet from her thigh, and then later declared to her that, well, unfortunately, she's dead. And all of these rounds that they did, according to the brother of the deceased, they had to do it on their own without the assistance of an ambulance service. And we will connect with the family and our correspondent Sarah Penkro, who is there trying to find out what exactly is happening or what happened really. But this is not pleasant news at all. And for me, this raises a question beyond the condolences that we'll give to the family and to encourage them in these trying times. This raises the questions about the present insurgence of guns, because I know musketry does not have bullets. Musketry has gunpowder. I grew up in a royal family. My mother comes from a royal family, same my father. Part of me comes from La Kwe, that's the royal family, one of the royal gates. My mom comes from Asre in Accra. It's also a royal family. So I am not ignorant of what should be put in musketry. And I remember back in the day, we all know what is contained in musketry. These days you find people walking around calling themselves Asa, and they have pump action guns, double barrel. And it's not only in Accra. It transcends Accra. You go to the eastern region, is there. You go to Pasba Shanti region, is there. It looks like everybody now wants to hold a gun and, fire, and they don't even care to pick the pellets. They leave them, they leave them just like that.
Some do not even want to go through the proper training to equip them on how to use these guns.
Or even to register the gun. Yeah. And I hope that Dr. Adam Bonner takes up some of these things. We'll try and connect with him as well. I understand the nuances of, how to get a gun, how to own it, and, what to do with it, what not to do with it, and all of that. But this is very, very sad news for me. The other leg of the conversation is the absence of an ambulance. I remember very well when we started this no-bed syndrome thing, some 4-5 years ago. The gentleman who lost his father, because they went from one hospital to the other. Lekma was one of the hospitals where, in fact, it was the source hospital. That's where they began from.
Their name is always mentioned in such cases.
And can you blame them if the facilities are not available, if the ambulance is not available? What can they do? I mean, this is supposed to be a district hospital, right? Lejokuku Kro Municipal Assembly District Hospital.
A form of a referral hospital.
Yes. So it's a district hospital, and a district hospital must have these facilities. It should never be short of it, because at any point, a district hospital would have to make a referral to a regional hospital.
Yeah.
If that is not enough to make us know that we are short of some facilities, then it leaves much to be desired.
This sad case of the woman who has lost her life as a result of these, I don't know whether to call them act of negligence on the part of the hospitals or state authorities, state apparatus, because the ambulance was not there. Maybe they didn't have proper treatment at the right time. I think it raises a broader question of how we handle emergencies in the country.
Right.
When this unfortunate incident happened, good news is she didn't die on the spot. There was enough time to, if you like, try and restore her or revive her. But all the places that they went, it was not successful. What do these facilities lack that they're not able to cater for emergencies? Are they only there to take care of headache and blood pressure and malaria and all of that? How do we respond to emergencies in our part of the world? See the videos you're watching on social media when it happened, you know. And then before the concern about the use of the discharge of arms and musketry in our part of the world also is something that we should also take into account. This is coming on the back of recent happenings to Kofi Adomah. He has also suffered damage to his eye.
Yeah. You know, he's married to a queen.
Yes, yes.
So a queen mother.
Yeah. His eye has also been affected. He's undergoing surgery right now in another part of the world. And that was also because somebody discharged, if you like, gunpowder or a weapon into his eye when he was there. What proximities should these things happen? What's the safest distance between these, people who want to show their powers in gunpowder use, in gun use and all of that from the main event, so that we don't witness these things?
We know that Sarah Pankro is there on the ground, but earlier she had written a story published on 3news.com, headlined "Family of the woman shot during a entombment ceremony at Nungua site delayed medical care for death." Now, the story says, family of Laurentia Na Bole Nelson, Na Gamu, who met her untimely death through a gunshot at an entombment ceremony, have cited medical negligence partly for her demise. Nagamu and her husband were being installed as the queen and chief, respectively, of the Adangbe Muslim Union, the Nungua West branch, over the weekend when a musketry fired hit her thigh. Her brother, Raphael Ni Bote Agbli, is very certain that his sister would have been alive after the incident if not for medical negligence. He alleged that they were turned away by officials at the health facilities visited without offering the bleeding Laurentia first aid or an ambulance. So the first hospital they went to, or the first clinic they went to, did not even touch the patient. They quickly sent them away. Now we went to the first place. This is from the brother.
They sent them away in the same car they came with.
Yeah, they didn't even offer us first aid. They then turned us away to go to Lekma. When we got to Lekma emergency, they also said we should take her to Rage Hospital.
Without also touching it.
Yeah, imagine the distance. Nobody helped us, not even an ambulance. They said there was none. We got to Rage. They removed the bullet and dressed her leg, only for them to tell us she's dead. This is the brother. And he says, I keep having flashes of her. I haven't slept since the incident. All the hospitals failed us, and I wish their licenses will be collected or shut down. What's their use? He lamented. The short husband, broken family member is what they got there. Now, Sarah did a story. I want us to listen and watch for the benefit of those on 3news.com and also on our Facebook page at 3FM927. You can watch. But for those of you listening to us, you can hear. It's quite sad and quite gory. Listen.
A distraught husband and a broken family. These are the words that describe the family of the late Laurentia Nabole Nelson Nagamu. What was supposed to be the celebration of their installment has become the worst day of their lives as a family. Nagamu was shot in the thigh by a musketry. The family suspects foul play.
We are seeking justice. Once one catching police will now make catching one catching a moment. One chat for one camole.
We heard the suspect has been arrested, but we as a family haven't seen him. We need to see him and ask him why he did that.
Her brother, Raphael, is certain his sister would have been alive after the shooting incident if not for medical negligence.
Christian medical. They didn't attend to us. Like, I'm a fair attempt to park a first aid no koni and say napu. They just told us we should take her to Lekma. But she Lekma who knew about jail at the emergency ward then who. I make a transfer like a rate without any medical, any first aid, nothing.
We first went to Christian Medical Center. They didn't even offer first aid. Then we went to Lekma Emergency. They also said we should take her to Ridge, where she eventually died. She bled a lot. All those hospitals failed us.
It's so hurtful. We should just question these hospitals. People can assist the ambulances because I don't see the use of the hospital.
Nungua Zongo is where she resides with her husband and 5-year-old child. Her in-laws are equally stunned with the turn of events.
All of a sudden, she was shot. We don't even know how it all happened. We are not happy and we want justice.
Shocked residents had but only fond memories of her as a gentle and quiet individual.
She buys fruit from my wife every morning. She is a very calm, nice person who doesn't even have friends. She doesn't like trouble, so I don't even know what to think about the whole thing.
The Gandangwe Muslim Council, organizers of the ceremony, least expected this outcome. They want the body of the deceased released for burial.
We as Muslims, our body doesn't stay long in fridge, but because of the circumstances, we are pleading with all authorities that matter too.
The suspect is to appear before court on Wednesday, February 26.
The use of musketry at some traditional functions within the country has become of major concern in recent times. Perhaps Madame Laurentia would have been alive if society has had a relook at some of these harmful practices. Sarah Apenkro, TV3 News, Nungua, Zongo, Accra.
And that's Sarah Pancruz reports there from Nungua. Straight, we'll go into the phone line. Sarah is still there in Nungua. Sarah, good morning. Thank you very much indeed for your time.
Morning, Johnny.
Great.
Thank you for having me.
Now, what's the latest? I know that the family this morning have converged to follow through with their demand for justice. But what more can you share with us?
So this morning, the suspect is expected in court. At the Nungua court, actually. So we are hoping to be at the court and get the facts of the issues from the CID investigator in charge, because there's a lot of speculations happening. And so it's only the investigator who can tell us the actual facts of the matter and why a live bullet happened to find its way at the ceremony. We understand 2 gallons of gunpowder was provided for the Asafachamen, who were the gun lords to use. So when we get to court, then we would know how it happened and how the life. I was speaking from some residents that the gun actually did not belong to the guy. He was helping someone clock it. The person was unable to, and unfortunately, it went off and hit the lady in question. So we cannot ascertain all these speculations happening. And in the moment of grief, people say a lot of things that may not necessarily be the facts of the matter until we hear from the investigator in court today. We understand he should be brought in around 10 a.m. So we are hoping when they bring him to court. In fact, yesterday he was brought to court, but by the time they arrived, the court had closed. And so it was scheduled for this morning. And the family also came around this morning to, they are expected to be here because they want to ensure justice is served for Laurentia.
Now, have you been able to confirm whether it was musketry that uses gunpowder or this was a real gun that uses bullets or pellets?
So from all the eyewitnesses as well as the Gamu Council members who were present attest to the fact that what hit her was a live bullet, even though they were not expecting a live bullet at the ground. And I was speaking information that the police on the ground had noticed it and warned against it for the young man to leave the premises. But unfortunately, he didn't leave. And so I can't really understand how the whole thing happened in the glare of police personnel. But until we go to the court and they will, when the witnesses are brought into the box, then we'll find out, because we understand he was not even among the assigned Asafachime who were supposed to be at the event to do the gun salute. So it's quite sketchy. We can't really understand what really happened, if indeed, as the family is suspecting assassination, or somebody might have sent the young man to do this. It's yet to be confirmed by the law force agents.
I see. Well, Sarah, I'll come back to you for some more updates, and we wish you well, and stay safe out there.
Okay.
That's Sarah Appenkro there, a woman on the ground. Let's connect with Professor Titus Bayo. He's an associate professor. He's also the member of parliament for the good people of Lambusi. Yesterday, he was on the floor of parliament making some statement. We'll talk about that. But first, Prof, good morning. Thank you very much for joining us.
Good morning, and thank you for having me, Johnny.
Great. Now, Prof, the story or the narrative we hear from the family of the deceased is that our emergency system is not the best as we speak. They didn't find an ambulance. The clinics and the hospitals will not touch the patient. It was the Accra Regional Hospital where they got some help, but their relative was declared dead there. What do you have to say as a former top scribe of the Ghana Medical Association about our emergency response system?
Johnny, this is a very sad development. Let me send my deepest condolences to the family that for such an event that is supposed to be so joyful ends up this way is very unfortunate. But about a week ago, I had a cause to make a statement in Parliament in addition to what happened yesterday. But I made that statement in Parliament on pre-hospital emergency care. And I said all of us in this country, we are just one emergency away from a preventable death. Because when an emergency happens like this one, and I want to focus on the medical response, the first aid response, and the medical system response. Because I don't know the details, but whatever it is, it looks like from the report she was shot in the thigh.
That's correct.
And if you are shot in the thigh and not in the heart or not in the head, then the only thing that could have killed her is bleeding. So it means the response of the first aiders, first responders that were there was insufficient. Someone could have known that even if they just use anything to tie firmly on the thigh, it will reduce how much blood she's losing.
Right.
Positioning her well in a car that is going, lifting that leg could have helped so that the loss is minimized. What is completely unacceptable is also the hospital, the pre-hospital emergency response from the system itself, the National Ambulance Service. Were they called? What was the response? What was the issue? But what comes to my mind when they were mentioning the names of the hospital was the 70-something-year-old man who died some years ago.
Right, the no-bed syndrome. The no-bed syndrome.
Yes. I spoke a lot about that issue, and I said the way we have solved that issue, it will happen to someone else if another person with the same name, age goes to that the same thing will happen, which means that we haven't learned enough from these systems. So how is it that, we need to verify the information, but for someone, a casualty, to arrive at a hospital and the family claim nothing is done at all, nobody even came to see, that is difficult to believe. If it is, then something is wrong.
I see.
Because at least somebody needs to see.
Right.
What are the vitals? Triage the person. Is the person getting in shock? Can we set a line? Can we do something? And the hospital certainly will have a better idea of how to minimize or stop this bleeding before sending the patient to the next hospital. And if they went to 2 different hospitals, that's the narrative.
That's right.
Before they eventually go to the hospital that they will receive.
That's right.
It's difficult to speak from a one-sided story. So I would urge you, the media, to get official responses from these hospitals so that we will know exactly what happened. The goal of all this is that should someone have a similar emergency, bleeding, and get to this very hospital, irrespective of who is on duty, the person should have a better chance of surviving than this woman that has unfortunately lost her life. But it's very, very, very unfortunate. There must be a lot of failures. The root cause, however, Johnny, is something we also have to look at. I, as a newly elected member of parliament, went for a festival, and this musketry was going on. My security had to stop them. They didn't take it kindly. Traditional authorities found it very difficult to accept it. They come so close and fire, and the sound in your ear alone can give you temporary loss of hearing, and scaring everybody really isn't necessary. And this is not the first time we are getting this sort of accident.
That's right.
We've had some in Cape Coast area, in the Winneba area when they held their festival, and these things keep happening. So we don't learn from our mistakes. It's very unfortunate. But on the medical front, definitely responses have to be received from the 2 hospitals that this lady got to. And I'm hoping that a full inquiry or probe will be launching today. And if that is not done, some of us will not hesitate to raise this on the floor of Parliament and call on the system to do an inquest into this and give us what has happened. The goal is just to make sure another person in that community, somewhere else in Ghana, today, if the person has that similar emergency, their chance of surviving should be better.
Prof, I'll come back to you and ask you, the place of the citizens in first aid and all of that, because in the narrative that we have so far, the people just took the person to the various clinics or hospitals, but they did not know what to do. So I'll come back to you, but let me welcome Dr. Adam Bona. He's a freshly minted Executive Secretary of the National Commission for Small Arms and Light Weapons. Doc, good morning. Thank you very much for your time.
Good morning, and thank you very much, my brother Johnny.
And congratulations to you, sir.
Thank you very much, Johnny. It looks like I can't hear you clearly, but I can hear your.
Great. Congratulations to you. Is it better now?
It's better, yes. Thank you very much, Johnny.
Thank you. Now, Doc, we heard what happened in Nungua, and I want to connect that to the new phenomenon of people moving away from musketry that has gunpowder, as we have all known, now to using pump-action guns, double-barrel, and all manner of sophisticated weapons, calling themselves Asafuache, if you like, Abrafo, etc., following our chiefs, kings, and queens, and firing at will. How did we get here?
Thank you very much, Johnny, and good morning to your listeners. I must say that since I was personally appointed by His Excellency, the President and his team, this is my first public conversation.
Aren't we lucky?
Stepping into public life is because I've stayed away from speaking. I wanted to give myself time, but this is important, a subject that connects directly to where I have been put.
Right.
The President, His Excellency, expects me to help rid illicit weapons and regulate and ensure that these things probably we reduce them to the barest minimum, or they do away with them, eradicate them entirely. And so I'm happy to say it's my first statement since I was appointed is I had to do that with you because you know how far we have gone.
Yes, sir.
Yes, so now to answer you, it's been a challenge even before I was appointed. I kept asking, I kept talking about it, writing about it and speaking about it and trying to find out where we went wrong so that you have BB cartridges that are loaded with lethal pellets being fired, in the midst of people. And sometimes those who do them do not know the consequences of it. And it is not just the unfortunate dying of this Queen Mother, I suppose, or this beautiful woman. I saw her photo. Right. She didn't deserve to die. She completely didn't deserve to die. And I want to believe that the president, for a very good reason, put me there to sanitize the industry. And so, Johnny, what I can say is that condolences to the family. As I took over on Monday, that was yesterday, 2 days ago, I had a meeting with my minister, came on a working visit to the commission yesterday. We had an interaction. There was interaction between my staff and him and his team. And one of the things we have decided to do in collaboration with other security sister agencies is to work out and ensure that these things don't happen, and they shouldn't be happening. This charge of musketries by the use of gunpowder is to give that cultural sound effect of a gun. But it is not to load these musketries, with lethal bullets. And we have even gotten to a point where some actually discharge weapons that are not, pump actions or single or double barrel, but they discharge, call them other weapons that are not supposed to even be in private hands. But I want to guarantee you, Johnny, and your listeners, and those watching us on Facebook, that in no time we are going to be fixing the problem. I have been put there together with the team. We will fix it. We would have to fix this problem because I am anti-gun. I'm someone who do think that people, shouldn't be owning guns. You go to the United Kingdom, you can't just get up and say, I want to be an owner of a firearm. No, it is not. Even police officers in the United Kingdom, for a very good reason, apart from the firearm squad, you don't have a large percentage of police officers in the United Kingdom don't even have they don't use weapons. Apart from, their handcuffs and pepper sprays and the rest, they don't use handcuffs. Okay? And so for me, I want us to come to a point where the Ghanaian will be so safe that he would not want to own a firearm. We want to have festive, occasions. We are going to ensure that what you are discharging don't have any lethal pellet or you are not using anything lethal. That when it is fired into somebody, the person could be injured or, could be put, down, just like it happened to this woman. And so it's just unfortunate. But I have just stepped into this shoe. It's a humongous job. But I know with your support and the support of God, the president and every Ghanaians at large, we will fix this problem. So, Johnny, just give me and the team a bit of time. My minister is in support of almost everything I've tabled before him that I'm going to do. He's in support of almost, in fact, all of them, that we should go all out, and we have his support. The president says I have his support to fix this problem because this was supposed to be an occasion. I say I grew up among guns, and I call myself the man from the north who once upon a time was a fisherman, fishing with my colleagues in Pung and all that, in Tema and the rest. But unfortunately, these communities used to be so safe, so clean. Today, it becomes something, those days, that you follow Asafuache and what they are firing, there's no bullet in them. We will go out there and we were almost like them, even though we're kids. Today, you don't know how we got there. But fortunately, I believe that the research agenda is on, and some of us are going to play our role in support of this and ensure that our chiefs would insist, and those cultural, leaders, traditional leaders who would have the need to fire weapons, musketries, and the rest, would use only something that doesn't contain, what do you call that, pellet or lethal bullet. So, Johnny, I think that let's give it a bit of, in a very short time, I'm sure you are going to hear from us.
Grateful. Thank you, Dr. Adam Bonner, Executive Secretary of NACSA. We're grateful for your time. Prof, let me come back to you. So the big question about the public's place or the place of the citizen in first aid in such an instance as we saw, as the narrative has been, what should it have been?
Yeah, so I think the general knowledge on medical first aid in this country is very poor, despite previous efforts and current and ongoing efforts to educate people on first aid. The general knowledge is very poor. When someone collapses in a movie, what do we see? People will scream around, pour water on the person, do all sorts of things before doing anything scientific. If you are lucky, screaming for help, that is all. Doing a first aid assessment is never done. In this specific instance, once the woman was shot, and I saw in the video, and the woman goes down, the first responders, those standing by, who notices that she is bleeding, the first thing is to see if you can apply some pressure to stop that bleeding. Because the first aid management of any bleeding situation is, can you arrest or minimize the bleeding? Because we have a finite amount of blood in our system. And if it goes below a certain critical level, your heart cannot function anymore.
Right.
So you will die. So to make sure that you don't lose below that critical level, anything you can do to minimize the bleeding or stop it in the first response. So this man was so conscious because he was standing there and went down. Somebody should have applied some pressure. Just using your hand, if there's nothing, then can be used a polythene bag, a plastic material, so that you yourself, you're not contaminated with her blood, and just put pressure over the bleeding point. Then what is a bit lasting will be to tie a band. So assuming she shot at a level on the thigh, you go above that level and then tie. If the injuries are into the pelvic area, that is more difficult because you may not find a place to tie. And so use your hand just to press where you can see the blood coming from, so that bleeding is minimized, would have helped there. The bleeding limb is elevated above the level of the heart while the woman is lying prone. Also minimizes blood loss because the heart will need to pump excessively for the blood to go up to that level and then be lost. So these are some basic steps that people should have done rather than that looking all confused. So it calls into question our public education. And I think that we should intensify public education. In some countries, it's part of basic school curricula. If someone is choking at the restaurant, what do you do? How do you even recognize that the person is choking? If someone is found unconscious, what are your first response? Even little children know that if their mom collapses in the house, they call a certain number. Here, our ambulance number, our emergency numbers are not the same. So you have to memorize different numbers. Is it a 112? Is it a, where everywhere else, they have just one number. When you call that number, you get help. So we need to have this kind of conversation and educate the public. And our movie industry should help us. Depict some of these medical emergencies and treat them professionally. Anytime I watch local movies and I see a medical emergency, I feel very sad. Where from screaming when someone has gone unconscious or someone has suddenly lost consciousness? Where from pouring water on the person? And so we learn it and think that is the medical way to go. And when it happens in real life, we'll all replicate that, which is wrong. So we really need to do something about this. That's what I would say about the public.
I see. Now, whose job is it?
Well, the government has a role to play. I mentioned that Parliament also has a role to play. The legislative arm of government has a role to play. Because when you look at our legal framework, I think there are what the lawyers would call some lacuna in this area or some loopholes in this area. The laws of medical emergency in Ghana are a bit outmoded and not in sync with contemporary medical practice. So, for instance, if you take the Factories Act of 1970, it requires that you have a first aid box and one person trained in first aid in public spaces. That is completely insufficient as of today because we should be teaching basic life support. The law should mandate that if you come to media general, you need to have 1 or 2 stimulation exercises in a year. And the municipal assembly should be able to come and check whether you have done a stimulation exercise. So in the event of a fire outbreak on the 2nd floor, how long does it take for everybody to be evacuated from the building? Do all the staff know what the evacuation plan is? If someone collapses, do they know what to do? And the basic life support. Then you can go to advanced life support and the use of things like defibrillators. If you travel out of this country, you go to lorry stations and you find automated external defibrillators there. In our stadia, we should have them. But what happened at Insacheman, there's nothing like that there.
Right.
So we need that kind of involvement from the executive as well to enforce these laws. And then we as citizens must all be conscious about emergencies. Because, Johnny, fortunately or unfortunately, medical emergency does not discriminate. The president can die from an emergency. The vice president can die from an emergency. The king can die. And the pauper or street cleaner can die from the same emergency because you won't have the time to call that your special doctor. You won't have the time to get to that your special hospital. So to the extent that your driver, your bodyguard, your house help, your child doesn't know what to do in an emergency, you are not safe. So we must all take it very seriously.
I see. Now, Prof, the family of the deceased are asking for the licenses of the health facilities to be revoked. On the side of caution, if after the probe, it is found that the health facilities did not conduct themselves in accordance with the ethics and regulations of your profession, would you support a revocation of their licenses?
Well, that is overacting. I think it will be an overkill. You will have to look at the benefit of this health facility to the entire community. These are public health facilities, serving thousands of people. So what will happen? What will be the travel time for anybody in that community or another family member who falls ill or has an emergency? Rather, we should seek to correct the system so that another person doesn't suffer the same fate. If people are found negligent, in other words, if specific health workers should have responded in a particular way and they've not responded, yes, there are disciplinary measures they can be taken through. And it can go as far as withdrawal of their licenses. All professional health workers work with licenses. But to revoke the license of the entire hospital so that it's no longer available to serve the community because 1 or 2 staff have done something that is not meeting the standard operating procedures, I don't think that is helpful in the public interest. And so I think that we should seek to correct the system so that we don't have a repetition of it.
Prof, yesterday you were on your feet in Parliament along with Dr. Sandari, Kwame Nyimedu-Ntwi, Dr. Zaneto Ajima-Rollins, and Kwabena Mintakanda, the health minister. In fact, he started and opened a can of worms regarding this whole opioid scare and the fact that it was becoming, in fact, Kwabena Mintakanda called it a weapon of mass destruction.
Yeah.
Again, you have been at the forefront of the Ghana Medical Association. Did we see this coming?
Yes, I would say yes. To this scale, maybe not. But the issue of illicit drug use is something we have seen, something we have done a lot about at the GMA. We held public lectures, annual general conferences to sensitize critical stakeholders on this issue. And we were mindful of the distraction. But what is strange is that what the BBCI discovered, in fact, the minister called it weapon of mass destruction.
That's right.
I stated that I see it as a deliberate poisoning. You see, Johnny, it's a different thing when you produce a medication that has medical use and then someone abuses it, takes overdose, or does not require for medical purposes but takes it. That's all that will constitute an abuse. But when you sit in a lab and manufacture a medication that has no medical use except to induce addiction, to get people high, then deliberately poisoning people or destroying people, as the health minister suggested. And so that's the scale that we've got into, and it has serious consequences. International consequences, regional issues, security, and health challenges for us as a nation. So we first commend the health minister and his team, because I'm very satisfied with their response. I was satisfied with the measures taken, suspending the licenses of some companies not to contract manufacture with Agio Pharma and all of that. Those are prudent, immediate steps. When I heard about the seizures, the distractions, I was really also very comfortable. But there's more to be done, because the consequence of what is happening is that this particular drug that we're seeing has very high addictive potential. They are more addictive than tramadol. So, and they exhibit something we call tolerance, pharmacologic tolerance. What that means is that if you take 100 milligrams and you felt high today, tomorrow 100 milligrams will not make you feel high. You need like 150 or 200 milligrams. So each day you will need a higher dose. Now, it creates a vicious cycle where you are dependent on the drug. And people who do not have money then will lead a life of crime, because to be able to buy it every time, they will have no option than to steal, to rob, or to do other criminal activities.
That's right.
To be able to obtain it. And when you do not have it, apart from the psychological dependence, you also feel physical dependence. They feel pain when they do not have this drug. So they will do anything to get it. The other consequence is that treatment of this has very bad outcomes. For every 100 people you treat with opioid addiction, just about 30 people will be successfully treated.
Say that again.
Just about 30 people.
Out of 100?
Out of 100. In the best case, it's occasionally may report a 50% success. So the literature puts it between 30 to 50, which means that many of the people will relapse. They'll go into rehab and they'll relapse. They'll go into rehab and they'll relapse. Public rehabilitation centers in this country, at my last count, are no more than 3. And it's costly to do rehabilitation. So it is better to prevent this addiction than to manage or treat it. So I will call on the regulatory authorities, the NBA, the Narcotics Control Board, Commission, the Ghana Police Service, the GRA. All these institutions have roles to play. Pharmacy Council, they license the pharmacies and over-the-counter selling points. When these drugs are found there, what do they do? Again, I was happy that they had done some prosecutions of 6 people yesterday, according to the minister's report. But things like this must come public so that there's a naming and shaming. so that others know there's a consequence for doing that. In fact, I would say that I think criminal investigation and prosecution, because to bring a drug into this country, I would even call it a drug, because this is a poison. So it was not made for any medical purpose. So to bring it into this country without license is a criminal offense.
Right.
Somebody needs to be found and punished.
Now,
I
see, Prof. So I'm thinking, you travel to other countries and you see that there's a certain strict regulatory system in place. If you say the medicine is supposed to be prescribed by a doctor, nobody will serve you that medication if you do not have a prescription. I have had occasion about 6, 7, maybe 8 years ago to do a documentary on this situation we're talking about now. And I went to 10 different pharmacies, bought the same drug, and no system was there to regulate whether I bought it from pharmacy A or B or not. Why can't we have a system to regulate the same situation? I mean, for example, in my example, I went to Adabraka, I bought tramadol. In fact, I bought tramadol and sleeping tablets, the blue. I bought one at Adabraka, I bought a Bubuashi, I bought a Kanishi, I went to Swan Lake, then I came back to Nima. I bought from 10 different pharmacies, and there was no system whatsoever to regulate it. Why can't we have a system like that?
We certainly can. First of all, in terms of legal framework, we have. Our problem, as usual, is usually the implementation. If you go into the hospital, we obey this prescribing orders strictly. But sometimes I say we are behaving like ostriches. So in the hospital, if I prescribe Pectidine twice for the same patient, 3 times, the pharmacy will call me to ask what is happening. Right? The person will not be there. They will have to cross-check the diagnosis. It is kept under lock and key somewhere. And they will have to enter the patient's name before dispensing it. So the next time that same patient is coming for it, it will show that he's taking one just this morning or the day before. That same patient can walk to Okanshi Dark Lane and buy a carton of Pectidine. And 100 milligrams of Pectidine going through this process. So the external control is the challenge. Now the reason why when you go from pharmacy to pharmacy, you cannot be tracked is because the systems are not communicating with each other. So we do not have, it's now that we are trying to have electronic platforms. The Pharmacy Council launched an electronic platform some time ago.
Right.
Best of my knowledge, it is not functional for almost 3 years now. I don't know why. They've been onboarding the various pharmacies, but it's not functional. But that could have cured this situation. When you receive a restriction, a restricted drug, it should flag on a central system, so that when you are taking it again somewhere, it's flagged. And then people can track your movement and realize that, hey, you are taking this one too much. Again, restricted drugs should not even be sold on an open pharmacy like where it went to. It shouldn't be at all. So that is also another failure. And that's why I said the Pharmacy Council has a role to play. So their post-market surveillance, how are they doing it? Can they just send mystery shop to various pharmacies and see, are they stocking what they are supposed to be stocking? And are people punished? Are they published on their website and everywhere for people to know? I mean, when you go to other places and you are prescribed a drug, you go somewhere, they don't even serve you. You wait because that's going to take from a central depository because it's a controlled drug. And the system will check to be sure you've not had it in the past few days. But that is not here. So it's enforcement of our laws. And that must happen. It's happening inside the hospital, but outside, unfortunately, it's not.
Final question to you, Prof. The intersectoral collaboration. So this may look like a Ghana Health Service, Ministry of Health problem, but there's also a Ministry of Interior problem. Then there's also Ministry of, if you like, Transport problem, because it comes through the port. How are we able to get all of them to come to the table so that we nip this in the bud? Because look at, like rightly as you stated, Pharmacy Council are doing their own electronic system. This one is doing their own thing, bits and pieces. How do we synchronize it so that we can get a broader approach to killing this snake once and for all?
Yeah, so I think yesterday the health minister mentioned that he is engaged in some intersectorial collaboration already. And as I said, I highly commend him because he's one of the busiest ministers so far. He's not had a honeymoon at all after coming into office. The cholera, and now there was the issue of dismissal of people, of strike, and then now we have this opioid crisis. He's been working and working efficiently. I think he should lead this. The narcotic control, for instance, and the Ministry of Interior. So we need the FDA ministry, the Ghana Police Service will play a role. The GRA, Ministry of Finance, will play a role. We need that collaboration, but one ministry must lead it, and I think the health ministry must lead it because the health consequences far outweigh the impact on all the other ministries. So maybe the health minister needs to lead it and have that collaboration of all the sectors so that they are talking to each other and seeing what everybody is doing. I did mention that it has a dent on our international reputation.
That's right.
For the report to say that the borders of Nigeria are better regulated and it's easier to pass this through Ghana, doesn't speak well of us. It's not that these drug addicts will then realize that the best spot to carry your stuff through is to have strict when we travel. So everybody must realize that we are all part of this, and don't think that it is for some few people. And I call on all the 10 ministries to work with the health ministry so that we can stem the tide.
Thank you very much, Professor Titus Bayo, Member of Parliament for Lambuse constituency, and I wish you all the best. Thank you very much, Prof.
Thank you very much for having me.
Great, and that's the conversation on the illicit drug that has found its way into our country. When we return from this break, we will have a conversation with some veterans because, you know, the 28th February crossroads is still fresh on our minds. Stay with us here on Sunrise. We'll be right back.